Welcome to The Catalyst, an exciting and insightful podcast produced by Northeast Iowa Community College. I'm your host, Amy Lasik. Together, we'll explore the people, programs, and partnerships that make Northeast Iowa Community College unique. From student success stories to behind-the-scenes info about athletics, innovation, and industry collaboration, each episode dives deeper into your community's college. Get ready for an inside look at the impact of community-driven education at NICC. Well, welcome to another episode of The Catalyst. I'm Amy Lasik, and today I'm super excited to welcome Flannery Cerbin-Bohach. Did I get that right?
You did. Good job.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to be talking about wellness in the workplace. And as we all know, wellness isn't something that we always think about in the workplace, but it really should be something we're always thinking about: how people feel, where they are in life, what they're juggling outside of work. That all shows up in the workplace. And at NICC, we've been more intentional about putting wellness and life stage support front and center. And that is Flannery's actual job title, Wellness and Life Stage Program Manager, to talk about why that matters and what that actually looks like here at NICC and what it should look like in workplaces. So Flannery, I'm really glad you're here. I want to start with a very basic question for you: is how do you define wellness in the workplace?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I'm really excited to be on this podcast. And I would say that wellness is truly an active process, and that's by which we're becoming more aware of and making choices that lead us to a more successful existence. So here at NICC, we focus on the whole person, and knowing that our well-being is really wrapped up into lots of dimensions. So those are our physical aspect, emotional, social, intellectual, spiritual, environmental, occupational, and financial. So we actually have over 400 full-time and part-time employees here at the college. And they span life stages that are, early adulthood, which we're establishing our careers. We have middle adulthood, which we're sort of maintaining that career. And then late adulthood, which is usually that transition time, thinking about retirement. And we span all of that. We have our youngest employee is 17 and our oldest is 83. So we really have to meet people where they're at.
I did not know that. 17 to 83. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a really wide range, and everybody's on that journey. And think about yourself at 17 and where you were and what mattered to you, and then imagine your future self at 83. And it's going to look really different.
Completely different. Yeah. So what got you interested in this type of career choice and focusing on the things that you focus on in your current position?
Yeah, I mean, my educational background is in actually environmental studies and public health. So I have an undergrad in environmental studies. I took a break for a while, worked for a series of nonprofits that focused on access to local food and physical activity, primarily in K-12 settings. And then I really was just interested in that intersection between environmental health and human health. And that drove me to go back to school for my master's in public health.
Very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So I know since 2020, there seemed to be a massive shift, right, in workforce wellness and kind of the attention that it received. What do you attribute that to? What kind of changes have you seen in the last 5-6 years?
Yeah, so 2020 was this turning point for a lot of us, and it's pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and I would say that the pandemic was a different experience for everybody. People. It ranged from people losing loved ones, getting really sick, having new stressors in their lives, to people who maybe thrived during the pandemic. So I don't want to just say there was one size that fits all in that experience, but we saw generally that the pandemic definitely increased, caregiver demands and intensified stress for people. It led to social isolation and just the uncertainty around jobs in general. And I would say that people are kind of still coming out of that. And so a wellness program is here, I guess, to support employees, in the workplace. But also we have seen a big shift as well to remote work and hybrid remote work. And, that was NICC included. So a lot of us were sort of thrust into that environment without necessarily being prepared for it. So I think about the stories that I've heard about K-12 teachers who had to like all of a sudden scramble to get their entire courses online. Imagine elementary teachers preparing, online learning for kids that are third grade. Thankfully, here at NICC, we were really well equipped in that realm. But we closed our forward-facing doors. We were still online, but everyone had to switch to remote learning and working for a while. And I had a lot of people reaching out and seeking support because they had these new routines. How do they set boundaries between my personal life and my work life, when like the couch is the new office space?
Mm-hmm.
And so now we've come out of that, but and a lot of people would say that that remote work or hybrid remote work has intensive or helped people's work-life balance. That Gallup cites that 76% of full-time hybrid workers in the US cite that improve work balance from the hybrid remote work situation. But we need to acknowledge that it does make it harder for employees to turn off. Rather than just checking your email constantly throughout the day, designate some times, like 1, 2, 3 times a day where you're going to just focus on emails. And then, especially at home, like focus on keeping technology out of certain areas. So, no phones, no laptops in the bedroom, and have those shutdown times. And I would say that remote work, hybrid work, does lay the foundation for social isolation.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to be more intentional. You're not going to run into somebody in the hallway or the restroom and have that side conversation, asking about their family or whatever, like that we are so used to in an actual workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too about, just the changes I've gone through in my workforce career, where you used to be able to as soon as you walked out the door, you can shut things off because no one could get a hold of you, right? But
Right.
now with cell phones and email and texting, it is really hard to create those spaces so that you're not connected 24/7.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I was just listening actually to the podcast that you did on the AI. They had a guest on from the AI, and it was one of your guests was talking about, believe it or not, we weren't that, it wasn't that long ago that we didn't have computers that we would take home. So yes, the work world is always constantly changing. We see that with technology, but again, we just need to focus on ourselves and know that like we do sit for upwards of 11, 12 hours a day. And we do have screen time, and that does lead to digital fatigue that, if we ignore those things, the years compound on it themselves.
Absolutely.
And we don't want to wake up with, splitting headaches and migraines and all of that from just years of not taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things you just said was so important is intentionality. Whether it's being intentional about when you check your email or being intentional on having that human connection.
Oh, absolutely.
And being able to schedule that or make sure that it's a part of your day. It can become really easy to sit behind a door and work on your computer for 8 hours.
Oh, for sure. Or hide behind a screen.
Hide behind a screen. Yeah, absolutely. So at NICC, one of the pieces of our strategic plan talks about revitalizing our culture and focusing on the well-being. How does that translate to what you're seeing here at NICC?
Yeah, I was really thrilled to see the new strategic plan, and that whole process was really inclusive and had a lot of chances for employees to weigh in and community members to weigh in. And I was really thrilled to see that wellness themes emerged in that plan. And I think revitalize our culture, specifically grow employee engagement through enhanced connection, professional development, and a culture of connection. And I think that is the strongest pull for a wellness program, is that it really truly is like speaking to our social and our intellectual well-being. So, as full-time employees, we spend roughly 2,000 hours a year at work, and that's going to be a lot of interaction with our colleagues. We're going to be potentially spending more times with our coworkers and our family during any given week. And so we think about the importance of having those healthy relationships at work that are going to boost your morale and help kind of combat burnout and ultimately increase your productivity. And I would say here we've done a really good job of fostering that sense of connectedness. So we have, examples of like our faculty networking hour, the upcoming Bring a Mug event. We have HR focus groups and Q&A with leadership. All of that, from my perspective, is really helping build a layer of trust and connection, and ultimately helping build relationships, which is important for our social well-being. And then I would say too, like professional development falls into the camp of enhancing our intellectual well-being, and just being active, lifelong learners, trying to think creatively, critically, and sort of trying to help foster that sense of creativity or curiosity in people. And it's just great. Like if that can happen at work, perfect. People don't have to find it, outside of work.
Yeah, so important. And one of the things that I think about are the role of a supervisor or a manager in making sure that this type of activity is important and shows up within the DNA of the culture. How do you see the role of a leader or supervisor playing in supporting these types of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. I mean, a supervisor and a supervisee, that's a relationship. And like any relationship, you need healthy communication, and a sense of trust. I think also we sometimes push too much on our leadership, and we expect them to, solve all the world's problems and be everything to everybody. But I think there's a lot of like personal responsibility for employees and how they show up and how their attitude can impact those around them. And alternatively, a culture can come from bottom up. It doesn't have to come from top down.
Mhm.
So I think it's sort of this. It's a two-way relationship for sure, but I think sometimes we're kind of easy to brush off that, everything has to come from leadership. But I do think we obviously need support and permission, and the expectation should be, yeah, take a mental health day if you need it. Take your sick time, take your vacation time. Um, I want you at work being productive and contributing. But I know that by you taking care of yourself, you're going to show up much better.
Yeah, that's a really good point on everything. The relationship goes different directions, and having that supportive nature can really go a long way. And uh, wellness and productivity, efficiency really it's interchangeable. I mean, it's connected so much. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe sort of something that we don't often stop and think about, but I mean, it's kind of common sense. I mean, think about the times that you have been outside walking, like taking in observations of your natural world, or you know, being out in the sunshine, or even being on vacation. Like, where does that leave you? How do you feel? And obviously, like those are things that you're doing for yourself. Um, you're maybe being more present in a space. Like, and then the expectation is like if you go back and you're asked to refocus after something like that, your head is going to
Mhm.
be so much clearer. We know that physical activity, improves cognition and reduces stress. Why would we not encourage people to take that walking break at lunch to go get their blood flowing, to recharge? I mean, the win-win here is bring a coworker and have a conversation, um, you know, that's work related, and
Yep.
you're moving, you're taking in some fresh air, and you're maybe even being productive in the work world. Um, so I think definitely productivity is enhanced when the person is taking care of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even the little things, right? I mean, definitely use your vacation time. That is to help keep you balanced. But I know for my work day, I think it's called the Pomodoro effect. I use my phone and set an alarm for a certain amount of time, and it reminds me I need to get up, I need to walk around, I need to talk to somebody because. And I find myself much more efficient when I come back to the computer afterwards than if I'm going to sit there for 2 hours straight and work on something.
Right, absolutely. I mean, and you can find yourself in a good flow state for a while, and sometimes it's like if you're working on a good project and you lose track of time, great. Like, that's a good thing. It's just um you know, if you need a reminder to get up and move, like just set it. Do it. I was just talking with somebody this week about that, and she's involved in the wellness challenge here, and had selected a bonus challenge of like getting up every hour and moving a little bit. And she's like, "Oh, it's so hard." Like, because it wasn't in her, she wasn't aware of it, that she was just kind of hunched over and sitting all day. So I had never heard though of that app, so I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I love it. And it depends on what I'm working on, but I might set it for 30 minutes and then go walk around for 5, or set it for 60 minutes and then go walk for 15. But it just, again, going back to the intentionality. I know it's important. I know I'm more efficient, so that works out well for me. So what are a couple things? You mentioned some things that NICC is already doing as far as like the wellness challenges, but can you talk a little bit more about those? And then what are some other things NICC does to make sure that wellness stays in the forefront?
Yeah, the wellness challenge is activity based, and so that occurs 4 times a year. And really, the idea here is that um, you're opting to be on a team with your coworkers, and it's all movement based challenge. So you record your weekly activity minutes, and there's camaraderie in that. So you have these teams that there's a leader in that team, and maybe they're sharing tips or trying to get people inspired or encouraged. When it's -20 outside, how are we going to move today? And then over the years, we've kind of layered on or tweaked the challenge so that it includes other aspects. So we might focus on some nutrition aspect, or some emotional health aspects, or mental health aspects of the challenge, just to kind of keep it fun. And folks can win prizes, but I think most people would say they do it just for the accountability of having people to say, "Hey, you got to get out today and move." And so those challenges we see anywhere from like 60 to 80 people participating in those a quarter. And they're fun for me because I create the shell, and I watch it. I watch people just run with it, literally. And so that's one thing that we do, and I would say that's primarily like focusing on physical well-being. But we also offer on-campus flu shot and biometric screenings, and this actually has taken place for years. But the idea is just the convenience of getting blood work at the college. It all remains confidential. I don't see the results it's between you and the provider, but it's just the fact that you can go and work and get your cholesterol, your glucose, your thyroid levels, all that screened, and get that flu shot, and then and bring those to your doctor. And then any employee can participate in that for no cost, and spouses on the insurance can participate that for no cost, and then spouses who aren't can participate for a pretty low fee.
I love all of those things because I know for me, it can all of a sudden be March and I'm like, I never got my flu shot. No wonder I'm sick now, right? You just don't make it a priority, or getting my blood screens. And so for NICC to make it a priority and take that mental load off of somebody,
Yeah.
that you don't have to worry about calling to schedule it. We've got it here for you. That really does impact and make a big difference for stress levels for people.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a nice perk, I would say for sure. And we see, I mean, retirees participate too, and it's so sweet. They come, and it's social hour, and they're drinking coffee and
Oh,
and
that's great.
eating pastries afterwards. And I have to chuckle because it's like, oh, sorry that we just had to put you through a blood draw for this. Um, yeah, so that's one thing. And then sort of the other, I would say, program that's attached to that is we have a wellness incentive. So that is attached to our insurance. So if you're on the college insurance, you can earn a $150 credit into your HSA or FSA. HSA being a health savings account and FSA being a flex spending account. But the idea is like you're focusing on a few health behaviors. You do those things. You go to the blood screening, or you go to your annual preventative exam with a doctor and a dentist, and then have a fitness routine that you can document and using our college EAP or employee assistance program in some capacity. And if you achieve all of those, you can apply for a credit, and it's just a nice seed money. I know $150 this day and age maybe it doesn't get you too far, but it's something, and it can incentivize those good behaviors.
That's fantastic. So I know we'll probably have a few folks from other companies listening.
Yeah.
And if you had to give them advice, let's say they aren't really doing much wellness-wise within their company, what would be something easy that they could take a look at implementing as a quick turnaround?
Sure. Yeah. I think that it's really just about starting somewhere, and it can be really small. But ask your people. Like, go to your people and say, what do you want? That's people support what they help create. And so if a person is feeling like they were included in that process from the very beginning, I think it's going to be embedded and much more sustainable in the long run. So when I came to the college in 2015, this position was actually brand new. And my first instinct was to form a wellness committee. And they really have become the ears and the eyes and the champions of the wellness program for me, and a sounding board. And so I know this can happen at your business. Grab some coworkers that, maybe are having, a special interest in something wellness related. And it can be the programmatic stuff is the simple, easy stuff. It can be fun. It can be, we're just going to pause and have lunch together, 2 days a week. Or, hey, let's do a reset on our potlucks. And we need to, instead of bringing all these treats, like, let's focus on bringing a healthy recipe. Or maybe it's, getting a walking group together that if it can't be during the day, maybe, 20 minutes before the day finishes, or set a goal of, doing a company half marathon. Who wants to train for a half marathon with me? So those are all things that are like really kind of low hanging fruit that are going to be big wins. And then in the long run, you can think about just what kind of culture do you want to shift to or create, and that'll be your team that can help you kind of envision that or make that a reality.
Yeah, great advice. Get the feedback from your team. And a lot of the things you just talked about, you don't need a huge budget, if a budget at all. It's just the permission and the structure to enable people to be able to do those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is kind of a misnomer that you do have to have this grandiose budget. and it really doesn't have to be that. I mean, certainly some seed money helps, but a lot of this can just be done, being choosing ideas or projects that, jive with people.
That's great. Well, I know you've mentioned you've listened to a couple episodes of the podcast before, so you're probably familiar that with a lot of our podcasts, we have this fact or fiction piece of it. So if you're game, we've got a couple fact or fiction statements for you.
Sure.
Okay. So the first one is prioritizing mental health in the workplace directly improves attendance. Is that fact or fiction?
Fact.
Fact. Yeah. It probably makes a really big difference if people feel like their mental health is supported.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We're seeing that more and more, that it's sort of becoming an expectation that employees that have when they come to a business is how are they going to support my mental health?
Great. We kind of addressed this, so if people are listening, they should be able to answer this, but wellness programs are only for large corporations with massive budgets.
Fiction.
Yes, lots of things you can do on the lower end if needing money at all. What about you can't effectively measure the success of a wellness program? Is that fact or fiction?
Fiction.
So tell me a little more about that. What sort of things can you look at?
I would say, I guess like big picture, like employee turnover, and it's a little bit hard to draw correlations here, but I would say definitely that, I would say there's some data that you can pull it as an aggregate within like the health insurance model, the data that we have, and like pharmaceutical usage, for example.
Sure.
And then also just like surveys about how employee surveys that you can put out.
That's great. All right. So another one, if people were listening, how about a workplace culture of wellness starts with leadership?
I put both fact and fiction.
Fact and fiction.
Because, yes. So for me, I got hung up on that because I do think it's a both and. But leadership definitely can set the tone. So.
Yes, absolutely. How about workplace wellness is just an HR trend and it will fade away?
Oh, fiction.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the whole being and looking at the whole person at work is very important, and everybody should be taking a look at that. I don't see that going away. Yeah. And then the last one, employees who feel healthy and supported are more likely to stay with a company long term.
Fact.
Absolutely. Such a big deal. So for individuals that are listening, whether they're NICC employees or individuals in the community, if they had to take one thing away from this conversation, what would you hope it would be?
I think as an individual, just think about how you show up and remember that, you have a sphere of influence. And so that might be the people around you that, your coworkers, it could be broader than that. It could be a department. It could be the entire institution or business. And think about that sphere, how you're channeling energy into that sphere. And if you're not channeling good energy, take a look in the mirror and ask yourself, what do I need as a person? Do I need to move more? Do I need emotional support, mental health help? And do those things for yourself, because ultimately you do have an impact on other people, and even just the way you carry yourself in the world. It exudes an energy, and you ultimately would want it to be positive if you want your business to thrive and succeed.
I love that, because it really just says you have control over your attitude and how you bring things. And sometimes it's just about addressing what you need in that moment.
Oh, absolutely.
I love that. Well, Flannery, thank you so much for joining us today and talking about all things wellness. Very important topic. We appreciate you joining us on The Catalyst.
Thanks so much.
So if there's one takeaway for those of you that are listening, wellness at work starts with noticing how people are doing, what they need, where we need to make space for them. And also, as we just talked about, noticing what you need for yourself and making sure you're providing that space for yourself. So thank you again, Flannery, for the conversation. And to our listeners, we encourage you to take one small step this week to support well-being, whether it's for yourself or someone you work with. Thank you for listening to The Catalyst. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us on this episode of The Catalyst. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Want to learn more about NICC and the many ways we support our students, partners, and community? Visit nicc.edu for more resources and upcoming opportunities. This podcast is produced by Northeast Iowa Community College and hosted by me, Amy Lasik, with executive producer Tessa Hill, producer Travis Hunt, and graphic designer Ashley Konzen.